And thank you, Tanya. Um, so I'm Therese. I'm one of the co-founders and on the executive committee on the Zed Factor Fellowship, and we'll go into a bit more detail on the process of the fellowship and the applications. But I wanted to go around and introduce our team who's on the call. So Karina, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah, of course. Hi, and excuse the lack of camera. Hello, everyone. My name is Karina Perez. I'm one of the co-founders of the Zed Factor Fellowship. On my day job, I work as the director of uncrewed and emerging aviation technology at the Aerospace Industry Association. So that's me, and I really wanted to be a part of this because I rarely get to see people that look like me in this industry. So the more doors that we can open for people like you all, the better our industry will look and feel for future generations. So thank you all for even taking the time to come and listen to us today.
And Tanya, I don't know if you have a second to chime in.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Tanya Harrison. I'm another one of the co-founders of Zed. I currently work at Planet as the Director of Strategic Science Initiatives. And for me, Zed was an important thing to work on because, similar to Karina, I didn't feel like I was seeing a lot of people from my type of background either. I have a physical disability, and so really wanted to help create more pathways for anybody that felt like they were excluded from the space industry to become a part of it.
Cody?
Hey, hi everybody. My name is Cody Nipfer. I'm based out in Washington, D.C., where I work in policy. Not a tremendous amount to say other than I'm really encouraged to see so many people here to learn about the fellowship. It's a really wonderful program, and so it's really great that you're all learning some. And as always, if after this call you have any questions, any comments or feedback, please don't hesitate to get in touch with the founding team. Thanks.
And then we have one of our founding partners and member of the executive committee, Kojer Sarkodie, also online, but can't speak right now because he's on the West Coast and still working, I think. But it's good to have him on. And then in terms of former fellows, I believe we have Abby online. We're actually current fellow. Abby.
Hello.
Do you want to give some background on where your internship is?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm currently in Seattle, Washington, interning with Starfish Space. I'm actually in the office right now, and I've had an absolute blast. I'm doing systems engineering work and have been blessed to work with the systems team on all kinds of different projects, communications, power, thermal, and I've really enjoyed it. So yes, I've really enjoyed the fellowship thus far, and so happy that you guys are here.
And we will definitely have Abby, and I think you're our only fellow on right now, but some more are joining. Is anyone else on who I'm missing? There are a lot of people on the call, so I might have missed someone. There are a couple of people who said they would be late, but Abby can answer all of your questions about personally being a fellow in a little bit. And I forgot to introduce my job. I'm the Senior Director of Policy at the Satellite Industry Association in Washington, D.C. So everyone who's on our team is like all volunteer. So please forgive us if we're a little slow in responding to questions. But we're really excited to work with all of you. I might have met some of you with the AIAA Diversity Scholarship, which I started almost, I guess it was 5 years ago now. So really great to see all of you there. I wanted to give you an overview of, the Zed Factor application process, because we got a lot of questions on that and who can apply and sort of what the matching process is like, since we got quite a few questions. So the Zed Factor Fellowship is a community-focused fellowship where we place undergrads from historically excluded communities at different,
right?
So don't take at different aviation and space internships across the US. Some are virtual, some are in person. The eligibility requirement in terms of year in school is you cannot have graduated prior to December of 2022. So if you're about to graduate, you are still eligible, but if you are not currently an undergrad, you should look to other programs like the Osakowitz Fellowship, which allows grad students to apply, or the AIAA Diversity Scholarship, which also allows grad students. That's a conference scholarship for those who haven't heard about it. There were questions about, we have a 30 credit hour recommendation for applying. So some schools do credit hours differently, but more or less, you have to have completed sophomore level classes to apply. Most of our companies want to see that level of experience. So if you're advanced in your classes, it's not a super hard cutoff, but if you've only sort of done the freshman, introductory gen ed classes, it will be much harder to place you at our companies. We certainly have some, sophomores that we've been able to place at host companies, but generally they're looking for a bit more technical experience if you're on the technical side of things, and I'll go into the non-technical in a little bit. But they generally want to see a little bit more in-depth coursework before they hire students. Some companies specifically, look for rising seniors or recent graduates. Some are much more open to all ranges. We try to be accommodating as much as we can, but it's certainly, a bit easier to place students with a bit more experience, whether that's coursework or in project teams, as part of, extracurriculars or, other research group experience. We had a question about what counts as historically excluded. We don't specifically define it, but if you identify as being part of a community that has not, historically been represented in the aerospace sector, we encourage you to apply. The goal is to increase representation, across the aerospace sector, and actually, provide company support and just change the culture of the aerospace industry to be one that's much more inclusive overall than it has been historically. We also encourage people from all majors to apply. We actually have a lot of opportunities for non-technical students. I would say we love engineers. Most of our companies want engineers or people, with science backgrounds, but we actually have more host companies in comparison to the slots that we have offered, wanting non-technical students to do marketing and communications, to do, PR work, to do policy and law work. And actually, a number of our executive committee are in non-technical roles now, including myself in the space industry. I work in policy, as does Karina, as does Cody. And so we can tell you that there are quite a few opportunities across the space sector, whether that's doing more government relations work. Anna, who will hopefully join us now, has a great job. It's sort of more marketing oriented, but at the intersection of technical experience and, the creative genius that she is. So hopefully she can talk about that in a little bit. But we have quite a few companies looking for non-technical folks. They find it much harder to identify non-technical folks interested in the space industry than, if you're an aerospace engineer, clearly you're already looking to aerospace companies. We had a question about international students applying and what the requirements are. So a number of our companies, due to US export control restrictions, are only able to take US citizens or permanent residents, but we do have companies that are able to take international students, primarily international students who are already in the US, who are eligible for optional practical training through their schools. And you can go through your school to determine your eligibility for that. It's much harder for students outside of the US. Last year, we only had one company that was able to hire students outside of the US, just due to US legal issues in terms of hiring internationally. We're trying to work on getting more, but I can't promise that we will have, a lot of companies that are able to take international students who are based outside of the US. Trying to look at over the application requirements. We had a lot of good questions. Oh, summer and fall. So we take students for both summer and fall placements. The applications are due at the same time. We ask you during the application process if you're open for summer or fall, and we confirm with you, throughout the application cycle, if you're still eligible if you're still open for both of those, and match you with companies accordingly. And what the application process looks like overall is you submit your application, and it's 3 essays and some demographic information, and those are due January 2nd. Our executive committee and some of our Zed Factor alumni and friends will look over those. And generally we can get it done in a couple weeks. We can down select through the applications to semifinalists. Please don't send us any information other than your 3 essays. We made a conscientious decision to remove any sort of letters of recommendation. We felt like it biased the process and was also, a barrier to students applying. Oh yeah, the 3 essays, sorry, and your resume. So submit those. And we review those in about a couple week period, and then we down select to semifinalists. And our internal team interviews the semifinalists for about half an hour. And it's not supposed to be a strenuous interview. It's supposed to be getting to know you better, what your interests are, how those might align with our host companies. And from there, we down select again to finalists, and then we match finalists with our host companies for interviews. Finalists, we'll interview hopefully with at least one company, but could interview with multiple if we think your skill sets, match well with multiple companies. We try to provide the companies with generally 4 to 5 students per position they have open. And so we end up, generally placing about 2/3 of our finalists at host companies. There were questions about application numbers. We had, I think, around 200 last year, expecting more this year. We've had up to about 24 students, again, who end up being fellows. We'd certainly like to increase that number because it's very hard to select our finalists and do the placements. We're working on that right now. So we may have more host companies than you see right on our website right now by the time the fellowship actually happens. I forgot about some of the important parts of the fellowship, going too much into applications. So if you are selected, you get placed at your host company, and the dates that you work are, up to you and your host company. We ask them to provide, a 10-week internship for students. But if you are unable to work that long, you can negotiate it with your host company possibly and work something out. This meeting is being recorded, and we'll put it up on our YouTube channel. I saw that question, so good question. So we place you at your host company. You get a senior mentor in the space industry, who's an executive in the space industry who can provide you or aviation or space industry who can provide you with some guidance. And you get a young professional mentor as well. Often those are students from other fellowship programs that can give you sort of more day-to-day advice. No, I'm not sharing a screen right now. You get these mentors who help guide you through the internship. We also fund you for one of the components of the application is a community engagement project. And the reason we thought that was important was we had a lot of students really interested in giving back to the community and bringing other people into the aerospace industry with them. So if you are selected, we will help you develop your community engagement proposal even more. It has to be somehow related to aerospace, but it's up to you how you define that. So we've had students, putting on a space festival for the general public, or students who do camps for, high school age girls to get them interested in space. We've had other students, try to connect their rural community to satellite broadband. So it's really up to you how you would like to define that. But we help you work on your proposal, and then we fund you to do that over the academic year and try to provide some mentorship and connections to make that happen. So we're a bit unique in that way from the other fellowship programs. And I think those were sort of the main questions on applications specifically and the internship matching process. Am I forgetting anything from the Zed team who's on here right now that you can think of that's important?
You basically covered it.
Okay, great. Before we got a ton of questions already, but Abby, do you want to talk about your internship experience while we have you here?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I did a poor job introducing myself. So my name is Abby Rodrigo-Paul. I'm class of 24 from Texas A&M University studying aerospace engineering. And I'm currently a fall intern at the Starfish Space, if you missed it earlier. So yeah, I got here at end of August and have had a blast working with the team here. Starfish Space is up in Seattle area, and they are doing some really exciting work along the lines of space sustainability, extending the life of satellites, and also work along the lines of space debris, removing space debris. So I've gotten to work closely with the systems engineers here, doing some simulation analysis and other visualizations and things of that nature along power and comms. So happy to answer any questions about any specific questions about my experience, but have really enjoyed the startup culture and everything that comes with that. And it's been really a great experience. That and also, attending the summit and getting to work on prepare for my community service project while I'm here as well. So I'm happy to answer any questions as well.
We had a lot of questions about the community engagement project. So do you want to talk about yours for a bit?
Yeah, definitely. And yes, Anthony, definitely. Yeah. Oh, I guess I'll like make.
Are you gonna get that Twitch that I showed you?
Is that Starfish Space will be doing a live stream next Wednesday. So some very exciting stuff coming out from Starfish very soon. So if you're interested, I'd be happy to have someone pass along that link. It's all over LinkedIn as well. But yes, would love to talk about my project. So currently in the works, we'll be doing a space robotics camp in North India at the end of winter break. So in January, have my sister and my roommate coming along with me to India. Yeah, I'm taking them internationally. It should be a lot of fun. We're working with a school in a city called a little bit away from a city called Dehradun. And we'll be working with the kids throughout the week to build robots to accomplish different space mission objectives. So it's going to be really exciting, and in the works of coordinating with getting kits and things of that nature. And would be happy to talk about how I planned it, how I reached out, and any of those things specifically as well. But I will mention that it is not like what the co-founders have said, it can be really anything, and we got to see some of the presentations from last year, and people have been doing some awesome stuff, and it's really exciting. So it's definitely the community you identify with, and so it was really important to me to spread my passion there, and that was something that I got a chance to do in 2019 was do a robotics camp in India, and so I wanted to go back. But yeah, happy to answer any questions about that or anything else as well.
Yeah, feel free to put questions in the chat. I'll try to go through some that we had that were submitted in advance, but if you have any, feel free to enter them now or raise your hand and we can go through them, since it was a very long list and difficult for me to scan through.
And I think Anna's here, by the way, too.
Oh, perfect. I didn't see her jump in. Anna, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, what you did in Zed Factor and also your zero-G experience?
Yes. Hello, everybody. My name is Anna Shaposhnik. I'm a junior studying arts technology in the business of innovation at USC with a minor in astronautical engineering. And for Zed Factor Fellowship in 2021, I interned at Orbit Fab as a marketing intern, which means I created press releases, graphics, merch, interacting with investors, logo design, product 3D renders, animations, videography, photography stuff. So as a startup, Orbit Fab is the gas stations in space company. So we do satellite refueling, and we're a startup. So when I joined, it was 18 people or so. And that meant that I had a lot of responsibility on being the only marketing person that whose sole role was marketing. So I got to put my hands in all the different pies of marketing and learn a lot on the spot. And now I'm working for them part-time during the school year and continuing to intern during the summers. Last summer, I also interned there. So yeah, it was great to have honestly, Zed Factor jump-started my career. I love Orbit Fab so much. And I would never have thought to discover them without Zed Factor, gas stations in space. How would you ever find that on your own, right? So I'm really grateful for the experience. And then I was also very fortunate to be accepted to the zero-G flight experience. That was I think one or two people from each different aerospace fellowship or organization were selected for this flight. And it was in partnership with Aurelia Institute, which is a new nonprofit organization. So they like had all these students and other organizational members go on a zero-G flight, and the theme was like storytelling. So what kind of story do you bring to the zero-G flight? What kind of objects would you bring? What kind of perspective are you going to tell? For me personally, I brought like a broom. So like a witch's broom, because the first idea that popped into my head, I was like kind of an artist, or like, oh, I want to fly on a broom in zero-G. Like, has anyone done this before? So I made like a kind of artistic broom project. And then my second idea that I brought on was a little robot toy model called Orbi, which came from a project I did in school of like an orbital hotel experience, and how like there might be a character that guides you through the experience and helps people feel at ease when they're going to like visit space for the first time. For example, in the future when it's more touristy and people are like coming up and going back down. And so I brought that to represent that project. And then I finally brought a 3D printed CAD model designed project that's called PST, which is an acronym for Personal Sustainable Spray System Technology, and kind of satire on aerospace naming and acronyms. And it was a little 3D printed model with two refillable air canisters back to back, where you could press it and it would spray air backwards when you hold this like device out in front of you. And it was meant to like be an experiment in like personal locomotion and thinking about like kids in the future, like if they're living or visiting a space station, what would they want to do? Like, would they want to like go really fast across like a room with this little like personal locomotion device? So that was an experiment more like in the product design category. So lots of really fun things I was able to do, and like the experience itself was so fun. Like you feel weightless, but also there's still inertia, so you have to like push off the walls and float in different directions. And I met so many different organization and cool people. Like for example, Astro Access is an organization that brings people with disabilities on these zero-G flights as well. So I learned a lot about their research. For example, like putting tactile feedback on the wall so you can tell which orientation you are in zero-G if you're blind. Or for example, what other ones were there? There was an MIT student who was developing like a watering plants in zero-G. So they had this little kind of fishbowl shape with a plant inside and like water that would turn up and water the plant. They were testing. There was also the organization called Polynesian Voyaging Society that brought up artifacts from their culture. For example, water from the equator that they collected on a voyage, using basically like traditional Polynesian voyaging vessels to travel really long distances using the same techniques that you would do to see like star navigation like back in the day without any technology. And they replicated that and were successful and collected this water. And now like poetically, they were able to bring it to zero-G. So it was a lot of really meaningful storytelling aspects, and it's really, really fun to be a part of.
Okay, we got a couple more questions in the chat. Quick ones on international students that I covered already. So our ability to place international students is limited. We have some host companies that are able to place international students who are already based in the US. There are export control restrictions that make it difficult, but we do have some, particularly on the aviation side. We're working to get more. It's much tougher to place international students who are not already located in the US. Last year, we had all of one host company that was able to take international students outside of the US. So we don't know the final numbers for this year, but very limited, especially if you're outside of the US. Question about this being paid. It is paid. Sorry, that's a really important question that I didn't answer, because I assume you should always get paid being an intern. That's unfortunately not always the case, but for us it is. We ask the companies give you a well-paid internship. What that means, varies from company to company. Based on geographic location and whether you're doing a technical or non-technical internship. All of our internships I saw that I know of paid well over, the $15 an hour standard, living wage that people ask for now. And they are required to, if you are relocating for your internship, help cover your relocation. So you do get paid for this. It's very important to us that students get paid. We got a number of questions, sort of about the types of companies. It really ranges. And so your experience ranges from company to company. We have quite a few different startups across the aviation and space sectors, and then, a few more established companies. But the type of team you work in and exact culture at the company, I think varies highly from company to company. So, for some of the smallest startups, you may be at a company of under 10 people and have to do a bunch of different things and get to work with the full team. There are some bigger companies where you're on a very specific team and you might be, in a very specific technical area working on just one, consolidated project for the whole summer. Our companies range from, companies doing remote sensing to companies building rockets, to companies building gas stations in space, or doing, delivery drones. Yeah, there are theoretical physics is good. You'll probably have to have a more applied take on it for the internships rather than theoretical, because our companies are very hands-on. Transferring to another university in the fall for 2023 apply. If you're currently in the US, I would think so, but you'd have to check with your school. The schools are the ones who determine your eligibility for optional practical training. And I'm not sure, and the tri-state area, the host companies are all across the US. And again, some opportunities are remote, and we try to pair you with remote or on-site based on your preferences. And the companies fill out a survey for us to say what they need. No, you don't have to be a senior to apply. We take everyone with 30 credits and above up until graduating this December. Do you have to have experience? You don't necessarily need any specific experience in the aerospace sector. Depending on what the position is, companies may look for specific skills and they'll fill that out in a survey that we do for them. But we do look for, leadership experience. That's one thing that's important to us. Whether that's inside of aerospace or outside of it. So if you have really great experience, in other sectors, I think that's certainly transferable. Some companies might want you to have coding experience, and it doesn't necessarily have to be aerospace related, or some, like to see that you've managed different projects and can be hands-on and learn things quickly. So it really varies quite a bit from company to company. You don't specifically need experience, but I think it's good if you can, show that you're motivated and interested. Housing it varies from company to company on housing. Some companies do help with housing. Some, are very small startups with only a handful of people, so might not be able to provide that. But, the stipend that they give you should be able to more than pay for your housing expenses if it's not already included with the company.
Therese, at least over the last 2 years, we've had companies who had remote internships given COVID, but I know that remote work has kind of stuck around for a lot of people. So there is also the possibility of some companies might wanting remote interns, just as an FYI, as that might come up. We don't have it in front of us to know who or how many, but just as an FYI to people that might be an option that comes up with a company.
And then some of the locations for internships, California, Washington, Florida, DC, some of the main hubs that I can think of offhand, in addition to the remote ones. Am I forgetting any of our major hubs?
Yeah, Anna was up in Colorado, right? Is that right, Anna?
Oh, yep, Colorado. Yeah, how could I forget? I can't think of any we have in Chicago right now. Can anyone else?
I don't think so. Seattle. I'm in Seattle and Washington, and I think Xeno Power may also be somewhere around here.
Yep. Xeno's in Washington, DC.
Oh, maybe I'm wrong about that. Yeah, I think there may be another one here, but I don't know off the top of my head, and I don't know if there are any in Texas.
I can't think of any offhand in Texas. I'm looking through our list really quickly. I don't think we do at the moment, but we might actually be in talks with some in Texas at this point. So there could be some in Texas by the time we finalize the list. I mentioned the applications before. We had 200 or so this last year. We expected to be higher, and we've had up to 24 fellows. We'd like to increase that. Like I said, the locations are primarily DC, California, Colorado, Washington State, Florida, hopefully some more in Texas. But those are sort of the major aerospace hubs in the US. So I'd expect most of them to be either in those locations or remote. Okay, more questions, or I'll go back to the sheet if I can figure out what window I had it open in.
I think there was one someone asked about doing research in biochemistry. I lost it though. Oh, research experience in biochemistry and then do something completely different. I would say that I think that could happen. That you do something completely different than maybe what you study. Like I'm doing a lot of software type stuff, but I'm aerospace, so I'd say probably yes.
Yeah, I think you just have to highlight what skills you think would be a good fit at the different companies that we have. In terms of biochemistry specifically, at the moment, we don't have any space biology medicine hosts, but we're actually working on that, you know, is directly transferable. And no, we DACA is totally okay. If you are DACA, you're treated as, you know, the same as the international students inside who are in school in the US for eligibility purposes. So you can't work on technology that's export controlled. That's US law. We don't have any say over that. So that generally eliminates some of the space companies. There are a handful that don't have those restrictions, but quite a few aviation companies can take DACA or international students based in the US. We had a good question, you know, for Abby and Anna. What were your most meaningful experiences in the Zed Factor community? And what do you think it was that got you the fellowship?
Who wants to go?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, I guess I think there were so many really meaningful, I mean, like, because it was like coming out of COVID, I think some meaningful experiences were simply just like meeting in person all of the Zed founders and like seeing other Zedis around different conferences and just like having this community that you're always relying on, and like you know these people and like you see them around the industries. Like it seems like a big industry, but it's actually really tight knit and small, so like you'll always see these people around. And honestly, just like the leadership summit as well was really meaningful. It was a great experience to have like one place where everyone's together and getting to talk to each other and network and know and like get new friends in person, and CDC and hear from these amazing speakers. I love leadership summit. That was amazing. I think like stuff like why I got in. I think just like you have to have like a passion for space and be able to show it, and like even if you don't, like for example me, like I had no experience in a aerospace company, or even like I was barely just interested since like I come from like a humanities background, I guess, in terms of like more art and design and graphics, in addition to some like robotics experience in high school. But I wanted to marry those two interests, and I saw that aerospace as an industry really had that opportunity, but I hadn't like got into it too deeply yet. And Zed Factor was one of my first like you know, ways of putting myself out there in terms of wanting to join the aerospace industry. And I think just showing that passion and like the ideas you have for the industry, even if you've never set foot in like a company before, is still super valuable. Any skills that you think would be useful, that you can contribute, like they don't have to be just technology-based skills. They can be like artistic, law, business, graphic design, like communications, PR, anything that you think would benefit the industry and like and how and where you want to work in the future as well. Just show that passion, show the things you've done before that you think would be applicable. And even if you've never stepped foot in an aerospace company, you are totally eligible.
Yeah, I think Anna hit like all the nails on the head there. The passion is so important, and like even if you haven't had as many experiences, it's important to show that. And also like a huge component, like the co-founders have been talking about, is like a desire to give back and be a leader in the industry. And I think that's so important. Like she mentioned that the ZIs and other people from other fellowships are the people that are showing up at conferences and connecting and networking. And I think that's, you know, so important. And I was so thankful for, you know, a tight knit community. Anna's not even in the same class year as me, like she was in the group before me, but like just getting to know the class above us as well was super exciting, and meeting her at the leadership summit. I got to meet some like incredible people and hear about what they're passionate about, and kind of see where all our interests lie. So I would definitely say if you have a little bit of a leadership experience, that goes a long way. That you even have that drive to get involved in clubs and organization and make an impact at your university, and then, you know, how far can you go to make an impact in your community then? And I think that's super important as well. So yeah, I feel like I've gained a community, and she made a good point that I think I realized, especially this past year, is that the aerospace community is like actually really small, and like everyone kind of knows each other through some means. And so, you know, this is a chance to get into that community while you're in college. And I think that's so important, because you will see these people all around. They'll probably see them at companies that you might want to work for, intern for, or after you graduate. And so I think cultivating that community now has been so important to me. And then just seeing passionate people, like Anna just opens her mouth and starts talking, and I feel inspired. So I think I think getting to meet people like Anna has been a really an awesome experience. And I would love to see all of you join us as well, and get to meet some of you. So yeah.
Okay, we had a couple eligibility questions. One was on GPA requirement and having a low GPA. Honestly, even though we require transcripts, we have extensively de-emphasized GPA. We've had students with really great grades. We've also had students with a lot of C's who have become fellows, but the C's, you know, generally have to have good leadership experience, or, you know, do something that shows that they're really driven outside of their coursework. We more look at the you know, look at your transcripts to see sort of what courses you've taken and what general background you have, rather than directly caring about the grades. Is something that's super important in the application process, since I realize, you know, grades can not be reflective of, you know, your true potential. Question about multiple fellowships. So I guess it depends. We don't explicitly exclude people who have done other fellowship programs, but it's important to us that if you've already done another fellowship, that you know, Zed Factor will add to your experience, and you will, like Abby said, give back to the community. So looking for students explicitly who want to be part of Zed for the community engagement component, rather than, you know, just tallying up another fellowship experience. And I can't really speak for the other fellowships for the most part. I don't think the Patty Gray Smith Fellowship, which is for Black and African American students, I believe they require it be your first aerospace internship. But the others, I don't believe you're excluded if you've done other fellowships. But I don't run those, so I can't 100% guarantee that.
Well, I think that there's been fellows that have gone to actually be part of other programs as well. I think that Anna, correct me if I'm wrong, I think Simran was one that ended up going to be a Brooke Owens fellow. And Kat Dominic was a Brooke Owens fellow, and now she's a Zed Factor fellow. So yeah, there's been a few cases, but Teresa's totally right about it not being a requirement or anything.
Yep, and Wilbert was also a Sakowitz fellow after, yep. So is the summit just for fellows? The summit is just for fellows. You know, it's something that, you know, maybe in the future we can expand, but for right now, it's just for students who are placed as fellows, and it's in Washington, D.C. We did it last year for the first time in person because of COVID, but it coincides with, there's a Future Space Leaders Summit every summer in D.C. And that you can attend regardless of whether or not you're a fellow. We actually showed up there with a bunch of the other fellowships, and I think it was a fun experience for everyone to meet each other. It's usually mid-July, but they don't usually announce the date until late spring. So OPT for international students, you have to go through your university to confirm OPT. We don't take care of that. But I think generally international students have not had problems getting OPT through their schools, working with our companies. It's just a question of, I know you can only have a certain number of hours of OPT every year, so you not having exhausted that limit. Question about not having much aviation experience, totally okay for you to apply. Look for the leadership experience and interest more so than directly applied experience and students with potential. Do we want all, what, go ahead.
Sorry, I was gonna say, if you feel like you don't have a lot of experience, that's where you can really make yourself shine in the essay portion of the application, where you can talk to us about your inspiration, where you want to go, what you want to do, kind of show us that passion in there. And I think we see those essays and we weigh them a lot more sometimes than other aspects. It just helps us get a better picture of you, the applicant. So I would say if you don't feel like you have enough experience, make sure you put some more attention to your essays as you go forward in the application.
Yeah, and it's great if you already have, the aviation petroleum experience, even if you just started college. So that's awesome that you have that background already. I had a question about transcripts, and it doesn't matter if you submit them with final fall 2022 grades or not. We mostly want to see what general coursework you've had to see if you have experience in specific areas our companies are looking for. Tips on essays. What one I would say is, try to use most of the space allotted. Occasionally we have students write like 2 sentences for each essay, and that doesn't show a lot of commitment or interest on our end. Get your friends to read over your essays beforehand if you can. Like I said, we're really interested in leadership experience and just seeing passion for your interest in the aviation and space community. Karina, what am I forgetting?
Well, that's, I think, like the main ones. And don't be afraid to show us who you are in your essay. I think that really helps us understand better why you want to be a part of this and why you want to join the community. And I saw both Abby and Anna nod their heads, because I think like they also wrote some really good essays. So if you both have any tips on your experience when writing the applications.
Yeah, I'll echo what is being said here is definitely make sure it's your voice that's coming out in your essays, because we're not getting to have a conversation with you, and so this is kind of the way we can have a conversation is seeing your passion through your writing. So I don't think you should worry as much as making it, using all the big words you can find as much as using the words that really express who you are. And I think if someone can read that and hear your voice, then it's going to stand out to them more than all the other essays that might sound the same. So yeah, take opportunities, talk about unique opportunities you've had, even if they're not, a huge leadership position or a really amazing internship. Like any experience that you've had, if you can talk about how it impacted you and how it makes you a leader, you want to get back, all of these things are good things to highlight and important things to highlight and show your passion to that sense.
Yeah, totally agree with everything said. I think also sometimes like something that comes up is like, oh, I don't know what to do in the future. Like, what am I going to write about if I'm maybe a freshman or sophomore and I'm still trying to figure out exactly where I want to make an impact in the industry. And maybe like, I don't feel comfortable writing about that vision yet. I think I'd suggest like, just pick something that seems like you might want to do it, or like really inspires you currently. Like, even if you're not like, if you're worried about like, oh, maybe I'll change my mind later in the future, it's okay. Like we want to, I think, like get like a snapshot of like your inspirations now and like what your hopes and dreams are for the future. Like, even if they're not completely solidified, like nothing you write there, like you're promising you're gonna have to do, or like you promise like you have to do, like accomplish these things that you set out to dream about. Just dream about stuff. Like, what do you want to do? Like, what do you think the space industry will look like with you in it? Or like, what do you think you might be able to accomplish, or you want to accomplish, or even at like companies that don't exist yet? Like, what would you want to create, or what would you want to see? like, yeah, I think just have fun with it. Like, don't be too stressed out in terms of like, I don't have a vision for my life yet. It's totally fine. Just pick something, like expand on it, show your passions and dreams.
Yeah, and we're not reading the essays for your English skills. We're reading for content and like passion versus you've got this beautiful flowery sentence structure. Unless you actually want to do all writing for your internship, in which case we might actually care. We got a good
And
question.
if you're a little worried, Grammarly and others are out there that can help you if you don't feel totally comfortable with that. Grammarly and other programs online can help you. Just do a double check of your writing. It never
Yeah, I
hurts.
think someone mentioned, sorry to cut you off there, Karina. I think someone mentioned like having your friends read over your essays, or like someone that can maybe just make sure that you haven't missed anything. Yeah, that's definitely good. You wouldn't want to have any major grammatical errors to take away from your, your wonderful writing, and that's important. I think there's a question for Maddie, and greatest challenge you faced during your internship. I think there's been lots of challenges. I love how excited Anna is. I think there's been lots of challenges. I think one I could think of kind of like off the top of my head, maybe I'll think more later, but is I'm working in a really small startup right now, and there's like a little over 20 people. And so really everyone's wearing multiple hats, and things are changing constantly. And I think that was something a little bit new to me and something very exciting, but also challenging. So coming up with, there isn't like, hey, can you do this? And these are the exact instructions of how to do it. And really that's the beauty of being in the aerospace industry and doing things that don't currently exist, is that we get to do exciting work like that. But it's challenging all the same. And here's, and I think something that's amazing, but also can be challenging is, and I think Anna could probably attest this too, is that you're given problems that don't have clear answers, and maybe the answer, you're going to surprise the engineers themselves. They're like, oh, I would never have thought about that. And they're going to give you work that is actually meaningful and impactful, because 20-person company, they don't have the bandwidth to have you do something that's not going to be impactful. So I've been given projects that have been really impactful and are impacting upcoming missions and things of that nature, and been given opportunities to come up with my own ways of tackling problems. And that's super exciting, but has required a lot of problem solving. So I think if you can kind of flesh that out in your essays too, that you have the ability, that goes a long way for any opportunity. But I know it's a little bit vague, but I think that's definitely been a learning curve coming out of my sophomore year into this opportunity. But I'll let kind of Anna also.
Totally agree with that. That's such like a common startup challenge. So I'll take a little bit of a different spin. I'll say, I think communication itself, or like just adjusting to the vibe of like being at a job in general, because it was my first like job, as well as just being my first aerospace job. So I guess like knowing how to communicate with your managers, and especially at a startup, like you get the double like whammy of like, oh, I need to communicate what I'm doing, and like talk to like directly to the CEO and directly to the co-founders, and maybe directly to investors sometimes. And like there's a lot of pressure on you to like learn really quickly and get up to speed in terms of like how business works, and like how you carry yourself professionally and how to communicate with your colleagues. So that's like a challenge, but it's also, I feel like it's not as hard as you may think it is, because like you learn a lot of those skills in school already. Like feels very much like my rocket propulsion laboratory club, for example, like where like I have a task and I do it, and like I communicate with the leads and stuff like that. So I feel like the job environment is actually much more similar to school and club environments than you'd think. So like you can rely on that experience to learn more about how like professional communities work.
Yeah, jumping that learning curve can be challenging, but very, very rewarding.
Very good question. And I see a question about computer science, but without a lot of technical experience. Actually, so in addition to the non-technical side, where we have a lot of companies wanting students to do business, marketing, et cetera, we have a ton of companies wanting computer science and electrical engineering majors. So, honestly, your coursework is amazing. And they really want to see that, if you have a GitHub, you might not yet if you're, relatively early in college, but if you have a GitHub, that's helpful. And, they might ask for specific programming languages that you have experience with. It really varies from company to company, but they do truly like computer science as a skill, even if you don't have a lot of hands-on experience.
And also to quickly add on, I think like interdisciplinary skills are also highly valued, especially at startups. I think like if some resume, like people will tell you like, oh, remove everything except for comp sci or electrical or whatever, but I would disagree a little bit specifically for startups. Like include all the like other things you do, like running a side business or like sold candles to your neighbors. Like that's actually valuable experience, like when you know how to do stuff. And like art and design, even if you're an engineer, or like engineering if you're primarily an artist slash humanities major. So like definitely mixing and matching and like including those at the bottom, maybe like your interests slash skills in like a little section, or highlighting it more prominently, like that's really valuable. And I think it's noticed because you kind of stand out against the people who don't include stuff like that, and like people feel like they know you more as a person if they see more like varied skills than just your coursework or just your like very professional jobs and clubs.
Yeah, and a couple of the skills that a lot of other companies look for that I haven't mentioned explicitly yet, CAD and SolidWorks are commonly, requested, as are machine shop skills. So if you've done any of those, definitely put them on your resume in addition to the coding related skills you might have. Any more questions? We've got about 5 minutes left if you have any last ones. Okay, well, seeing none, I guess we can wrap up. Feel free to email us at info at what about astrophysics and applied math majors. Absolutely, I've had both of those majors involved in the fellowship. Oftentimes those students do engineering types of roles. So be sure to list what transferable skills you have, because not every company understands what an astrophysics major is. As someone who was an astrophysics major, but definitely eligible to apply. And artistic things are great. Anna, effectively got her role because she was this perfect intersection between engineering and art. So definitely recommend including the artistic things as well. Pre-health science, we are working on getting more health focused, space focused internships related to health and medicine. We don't have any host companies explicitly doing that right now. Some are certainly interested. So I would say definitely apply, figure out what skills might be transferable, even to non-health focused companies, but maybe we'll have a company directly working on space health. I'm trying. This is our 3rd year for the fellowship. Yes, you can apply if your major is pre-health science. Yes, there are no restrictions on majors. I'm trying to find my LinkedIn now. But yeah, please connect with all of us, and we're happy to answer questions via email as well at info@zedfactorfellowship.org. I'll place that. And we're very excited. Yeah, go ahead, Karina.
There was one more question on location, and it all depends on the host company.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll leave this open. Oh, if you live in New Mexico, we have some remote fellowships. We don't have any host companies currently in New Mexico. That might change by the deadline. But if you had to relocate for your fellowship, your host company should help pay for that. The closest we have right now would be California or Colorado. Colorado's closer. I know geography. We've been around for this is our 3rd year. for people who asked that. Yeah, feel free to drop off. I'll just stick around in case there are any last minute questions or people have not clicked on our LinkedIn profiles yet who want to.
Yeah, and please don't hesitate to send an email or a LinkedIn message. Would be happy to answer it.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Abby and Anna.
Thank you guys so much for this. Have a great night.
Thanks, have a great night.
Yeah, bye,
You
Abby.
too. Bye, Anna.
Okay, I think we're probably good. So thanks, Tanya and Karina. I think we can drop off. Night, everyone.
Have a good night, everyone.
Bye.
Thank y'all.
Abby Boo need jackets like yours.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
See ya.
See y'all.